No drawn-out intro is needed. If you're watching this video, you already know Pitchfork, who they are and what they're about. This video tiers all 20 of their songs of the year to this point. The criteria is simple. How good is the song in current year? And this being a Pitchfork-inspired list, its tier placement may be influenced by the commentary of whatever fart-sniffing staff member wrote about it in their yearly retrospective. So let's get to it. Many have claimed Pitchfork have strayed from their alleged alt, lo-fi, and indie roots that gave them their reputation in favor of standing for pop rap and pop rap. This would never have happened if Kanye Nass didn't puke money all over them, they like to say. This is simply not true. Songs like these were all over their yearly countdowns for as long as they've had them. Case in point, their first year with such a countdown of songs, or singles as they're called here, an important distinction we'll mention later, is 50 entrants, half being pop or rap, including the one at the top, Hey Ya by Outkast. It's a little hard to overestimate how big this song was in 2003. It was played constantly on every radio station regardless of format. It was all over every TV show and commercial. You go to a friend's house, a bar, or a club, and they're playing it. It was played in every house of worship, corporate boardroom, museum, and library. It could be heard on the top of Mount Everest, the bottom of the Mariana Trench, and well into outer space. Suddenly, reasonable people were considering attending KKK rallies just to get away from Hey Ya for a couple hours. All non-hermits with a sense of hearing hated this song by the year's end. Listening to it now that it's not coming out of every speaker within earshot, it's pretty freaking good. It's catchier and funner than most of its genre, while being one of the most distinctive and memorable pop rap songs ever. It really is something that these dudes got a song with an 11/4 time signature to dominate the world for a time. Granted, it's not perfect. Some parts of the song drag on for a little bit, and some of its lyrics are a little awkward. While it doesn't quite deserve the year's top slot, this one absolutely holds up and then some. It gets an A. Now let's see what Pitchfork has to say about it. With the first paragraph, we can see the universality of the song is a stone's throw away from its ubiquity that would temporarily destroy the song, not cringe. That comes in the second paragraph. The purpose of all great pop is to introduce new slang into the vernacular. Why? The rest of it is awkward Pitchfork speak about bringing people together. But if world peace means saturating the planet with Hey Ya's sound waves to at least 2003 levels, it simply ain't worth it. Especially the supposed world peace as dictated by the oligarchs at Pitchfork. This one is bumped to a B. See Pitchfork, this is the power you have, don't forget it. Heartbeat by Antony. If you've never encountered the preceding sentence fragment before, you're not alone. If one were to take the combined total of times this one's been streamed on YouTube, you'd get a total well south of 2 million views at the time of this video's upload. If they knew their pick would turn out to be such a non-entity, they certainly would have chosen differently. As we all know, Pitchfork is obsessed with being seen as hip, ahead of the curve, relevant, and tastemakers. And when the top slot of this most prestigious list by said alleged arbiters of cool is ignored as aggressively as this, it takes a hit to their credibility. But I digress onto the song. It's every bit as unmemorable as the low view count would imply, which is to say it certainly isn't bad. That would make it more memorable. There is very little remarkable about it, this song's strong point being the moderately catchy chorus with its highly effective use of electric organs, with everything else about the song being about average or worse. Maybe Pitchfork can sell us on it. No, they can't, at least not well. Their explanation props Heartbeat up as the symbol for the time pop would refer to the stuff beyond that played on radio stations claiming to be such. If Pitchfork were to redo this list, they may give Heartbeat a high ranking, claiming it as a proto-electropop classic well ahead of its time, which electropop would of course be one of those Pitchfork-approved genres several years after 2004. I'm not buying either explanation, though. Oh, and perfect pop song? If this exact same rag taught us anything from last year's list, the purpose of all great pop is to introduce new slang into the vernacular, which Heartbeat absolutely fails this Pitchfork-mandated test. Despite this entry isn't cringeworthy enough to lower its rating, so it stays at a C. As big of a risk as they took with Heartbeat, they similarly swung for the fences. When the results are nominally better from a Pitchfork brand point of view. Hope There's Someone by Antony and the Johnsons was awarded the top spot here. Its lyrics cover fears about dying, more specifically about dying alone without a romantic or even a life partner. They deserve credit for taking on lyrical themes rarely found in most people's playlists. Listening to it at some 17 years later, it strikes at two similarly extreme chords. On the one hand, the slow, soft, haunting piano, coupled with the very serious, concerning lyrics, hits just right in a way. Anyone with even the slightest bit of emotion can sympathize or at least understand the gravitas here. Even in the more modern times of the 2020s, people are increasingly connected but more socially isolated than ever. Then there's the part of it that doesn't age so well. Since 2005, words like incel and MGTOW have entered the vernacular. Why are you afraid of being alone? Your standards too high? Fear of rejection? Are you more unlikable than you think? Are you doing enough to actively make meaningful personal connections? Or are you simply passively waiting by, hoping somebody cool sees how awesome you are and makes an effort to get to know you? These and other questions arise. Such questions may be answered elsewhere on the album, but Pitchfork put this as their top single of 2005 and sufficiently stand on its own. It frankly does not. Musically, the song crescendos at about the 2.5-minute mark as a not subtle symbol of the passage to the other side. Any further analysis and interpretation are up to the individual listener. It should be noted the front person of Antony and the Johnsons, currently known as Antony, born in 1971, identified as a male to female transgendered person at a very early age, far before the trans community would reach the visibility and awareness they currently have. And said lack of community makes the uncertainty expressed in Hope There's Someone easier to understand. And Pitchfork makes minimal mention of the fact Antony is trans in either this write-up or the review for the album from which it comes, which, if Pitchfork were to slap a retrospective on this list together, they'd certainly be unable to resist mentioning the fact they were ahead of the curve in highlighting a trans artist. This song tiers a C. By the way, let's take a look at that year-end write-up of this one. And yeah, it's terrible. The entire first paragraph is a who gives a fat slap about the New York bohemian scene. The author simply wants the reader to know they have at least this level of knowledge about it. The second paragraph isn't much better, and does very little to explain why this tune should be number one. It ends with the banal statement we should hold our loved ones closer. But one of the most urgent fears hinted in Hope There's Someone is there may be no loved ones when they are needed most. This is definitely an awful summation, one that lowers this song 2 tiers, but since there is no E and F is too harsh, Pitchfork pushes this one to a D. After 2 years of topping their singles list with risky, with high payoff potential that didn't pan out picks, they made it clear they are going for that bag in 2006. Yes, they are overtly going for clicks when they put the former boy band heartthrob with the then Kiss FM approved termed controversial pop rapper at their top spot. My Love by Justin Timberlake featuring T.I. is the perfect example of a song that's less than the sum of its parts. The synthesizer is nothing short of hypnotic. The beat is simple but very effective. JT holds the listeners in the palm of his hand, and T.I.'s verse? Well, it's a thing that exists. But in actuality, the synthesizer simply overstates its welcome after 4.5 minutes, much less multiple listenings, and Timberlake's considerable vocal prowess is wasted on predictable hackneyed lyrics about monogamous love. And yes, we're all aware of the fact the words hit different coming from Prime Timberlake than just about any other man. Not even his fantastic falsettos can make up for My Love's awkward rhymes. Said awkward lines pervade T.I.'s verse to a debilitating degree, but he has enough flow and charisma so that not all is lost. It goes into the C tier. Pitchfork's write-up on the song certainly lacks any climaticism typically associated with topping an ostensibly prestigious year-end chart. Far too much of said dedication is about the fact it was a leak. One can only assume they were the first, if not the first, to break the story on the leak, and or to have obtained a leaked MP3 because that entire second paragraph is dated. This is arguably the single worst adjective one can apply to anything published at Pitchfork. EQing? What even is that? Rhetorical question. The rest of it is dumb too. The first paragraph talks about how bold and daring JT is for singing like a girl. Like, what the hell? Nothing especially risky about this in 2006 if it fits. Let's focus on the final lines of the final paragraph. It's Pitchfork speak for,
"Hey, sheeple readers of our online mag, super mainstream pop music is one of the Pitchfork-approved genres, so embrace us while we slowly turn our backs on the core audience that gave us the cultural cachet we enjoy."
And yes, the thought Pitchfork is douchey enough to call their readership sheeple is well within the realm of reason. Evidence of some of this douchiness can be seen right here in their yearly retrospectives. When the rankings get above 10, why do they put this unnecessary 0 here? Rhetorical question. Pitchfork's action here moved my love down to a D. And so we reach what many would call peak Pitchfork. It's hard to know when their influence as tastemakers reached its apex, but it's clear it would be in noticeable decline fairly soon after 2007. Phil's picking '07 as the year Pitchfork peaked have a strong argument when LCD Soundsystem's All My Friends topped the chart. It has been speculated this band's popular rise has been fueled largely by Pitchfork in one way or another. Perhaps bribes were exchanged between LCD's people and Pitchfork's. Maybe James Murphy has some compromising Polaroids of Ryan Schreiber, then leader of the Fork. Maybe certain acts emit subliminal messages only effective on the overeducated and underemployed. No matter what the case, All My Friends is fantastic. It violates many conventional pop sensibilities Pitchfork have been trying for years to convince its readership is good. To name a few, it's 7.5 minutes long. The lyrics tackle themes related to aging. The song eschews reliance on hooks in favor of a Stairway to Heaven-like build-up and progression done nearly as well as the source material. It's a great song, but some flaws are present. It probably doesn't need to go on for as long as it does. And some of the lyrics are a little cringe, just what the hell is a sales force into the night? We're not going to nitpick all the small flaws, but we will say they're enough to keep it out of the S tier. Let's see what the professional hipsters of the Fork have to say about it. I gotta say, this is a great little paragraph they've got going on here. Turns out Pitchfork writers spin a good word when they make the right calls and dial back the pretentiousness. Upon reading this, I had a greater appreciation for the subject matter and wanted to learn more, which is not the most common thought upon reading Pitchfork paragraphs. Well done, Mark Pitlick, you've done bumped this to an S. If you did want more Pitchfork analysis about All My Friends, they had a countdown of their top 200 songs of the 2000s a while back where it ranked number 2. This testimony is less than half as good as the one we've just shown here and twice as long, but it's not enough to punch it from its S perch. Pitchfork really liked their lumbering alt-dance anthems throughout the mid to late 2000s. For the second year in a row, they topped their countdown of top tracks by one such. And yes, at this point, it's no longer a collection of singles, they're tracks. Get it right, plebeian. Hercules and Love Affair's Blind gets the top spot here. It starts off with a relentless, pulsating, mesmerizing, spiraling synthesizer, which is far and away the star of this one. Anything else, from the conga percussion to the blaring horn outbursts to the raspy vocals delivering forgettable lyrics, is generally sufficient, though never outstanding. The various elements work well together. It's a good tune, simply not enough to carry it to Track of the Year territory. You can also pinpoint the exact moment this more than 6-minute ditty falls apart, at the 4-minute and 30-second mark. It's not often you can definitively do that, but this is one such track. Put it in the B tier. Mark Pitlick returns for another top of the list testimony, and this one is not as effective. The first half of this is nothing more than a complaint about the state of dance music in 2008. Not too big of a deal, but we like our celebrations of musical greatness to be less complainy. Then he states Blind cuts across all sections and tastes, which I'll press X to doubt, given the fact I had never heard of it before researching for this vid. Nonetheless, these issues aren't quite enough to dock any tiers, so B is still for Blind.
People seem to like this all-dance thing we've got going on. Let's top our 2009 best tracks list with something that's little more than the top songs from the previous 2 years put together.
Animal Collective took the spiraling synthesizer from Blind and added some of those LCD style beats and took considerable cues from All My Friends' structure, and we've got My Girls. Its synth melody isn't as dominating as that of Blind, but it certainly does not need to be. The other parts of the song are a bit better than those of the previous year's winner. The lyrics in particular are a personal yet quite powerful ode to the wife and daughter of Panda Bear Noah Lennox, this song's lead vocalist. The biggest problems with this one are that while the song slowly builds up throughout it, it almost baits the listener that even a mightier climax is coming. Whereas most Pitchfork-approved indie dance rock songs are more likely to run out of steam, this one ends almost abruptly, which is something considering the Animal Collective dudes don't step away from their posts for 5.5 minutes. Mere trifles these are. Give this one an A. Now let's see Pitchfork explain themselves. Yeah, it's got its Pitchforkian moments. Catchy? The only real catchy parts involve the synthesizers filling the listener's ears like B-style fireworks fill their corner of the sky. Hollering? To My Girls? Seems disrespectful considering the solemn lyrical content. After all, the author says, correctly, this one is all heart. The final couple sentences save it from being down to tear. The electronics and lyrics really work for this one. If it wasn't clear Pitchfork's role of all things taste and cool wasn't what it used to be, look no further than the song, or track, yes they're still calling them tracks at this point, they deemed to be the best of 2010, Round and Round by Rat. Just kidding, that would have been interesting. They decided to be way less awesome and nominate a considerably worse song of the same name, the one by Ariel, Pink's Haunted Graffiti. This song is, if nothing else, a symbol of the Fork's decline in power. Dropping in 2010, well within the era of commonplace high-speed internet connection and music streaming on YouTube, and the highest performing video of this top dog of its year fails to crack even 400,000 views after a dozen years. Not even putting it at number 1 could inspire more than negligible viral interest in this song. These sorts of things amuse me. As far as the song goes, Round and Round is, for the most part, a soft, sleepy, boring-ass piece of crap. Hypnagogic pop, a highly niche flavor of the week in those days Pitchfork were trying to foist on their audience, or a perfect version of it is what this song supposedly is. In actuality, it plays like a lo-fi version of 1970s yacht rock that punk and alternative had supposedly taken down for the count. Many picks on this list are generally good songs brought down a peg or two with some niggling flaws. Round and Round is a generally bad song elevated by a couple strengths. The chorus roars like a lion compared to the rest of the track. Normally it wouldn't stand out so much, but considering the glacial tedium that pervades it, the listener is glad to hear it. Secondly and lastly, when the song changes gears, it does subtly but clearly and reasonably effectively, giving the listener a few seconds of anticipation before almost assuredly segueing into disappointing mediocrity. Everything else, though, is better forgotten. Round and Round is monotonous, it lacks good hooks or anything else substantial, and the lyrics are stupid and repetitive, and it's so slow it feels much longer than the just over 5 minutes it takes for it to mute. Because the vocal harmonies are okay, we'll round this up to a D. It'll take Pitchfork's top mind to sell this one. Let's see what we got. 2 stinking paragraphs. Not a good start. Let's break this up. Paragraph 1. Nobody cares about what this song reminds you of, or why you think it. Even if it is about last year's My Girls, which is actually good, but the part about the Animal Collective tune being played at weddings, guessing the author doesn't go to many weddings, that one doesn't tick many boxes of being a common wedding song. It's not very danceable, there's no pop crossover, and it's not especially climactic. Only weddings that one's being played at are those populated mostly by pitchforkers, and that's a cringe image if there ever was one. The second paragraph is even worse, garbled with awkward pitchfork speak, brought to a head with an absolutely ridiculous metaphor about a school talent show. Very few people's minds were blown by this one. The YouTube views attest to that. Thanks to Pitchfork, F tier now has a settlement, population Round and Round. Pitchfork don't usually like their music to be big. The types of acts they have a reputation for gravitating towards are typically very understated. They've also jettisoned many of their old reviews, a disproportionate number of which surely covered music with bigger, less currently Pitchfork-approved sounds. So it's a little off-brand, a song, track, that can be best described as arena synth-pop reaches Pitchfork's top of 2011. But M83's Midnight City is just that. Musically, everything about this one is big. The synthesizers are flamboyant, the beats stomp, the sax near the end drips with swag. Why did Pitchfork approve of all this grandiosity in a non-rap song? The lyrics don't have the oomph the music does, but they don't need it. They're about urban life and the anticipation of the possibilities they're in. They're presented with positive tonality, which is refreshing. Usually when discussions of urban life are publicly or even privately had, people do not do much beyond complain about it. Midnight City's a banger, no two ways about it. This one absolutely lives up to its grandiosity. And although the wailing synth gets tiresome and the lyrics are simplistic and questionable, it's still an A. How's Pitchfork going to ruin this one for us? 3 paragraphs. Alright, let's get this over with. The first 2 paragraphs are pretentious and unnecessary. The first one is neither good nor terrible, and the author's right about the song being triumphant and striking the right emotional chords. The second paragraph has that tear-docking power only Pitchfork writers seem to have, cresting at the use of the word zeitgeisty. Pro tip: if you're trying this hard to write significant-sounding words, don't invent a new word by suffixing it with a hyphen Y. This is something baseball hat-wearing, financial analyzing, post-Malone listening dude bros do. Paragraph 3 saves the day well enough, though, reading like a loving tribute to the song, teetering the edge of intelligent and pretentious, which is very good for Pitchfork standards. If the previous 2 paragraphs weren't there, this song would get the All My Friends treatment, but they are, so Midnight City's tier gets neither enhancement nor abasement. There was a time Grimes' music wasn't overshadowed by romantic and reproductive links to Elon Musk, or making strange statements on Tumblr, which really says something because the majority of her music is nothing if not memorable. Back in 2012, if you were a male whose personality was derived from their beard and chunky glasses, or a female who spent 15 minutes a day self-trimming their bangs, Grimes was probably at the center of your musical universe. Pitchfork agreed, giving Oblivion the nod for best track that year. Whereas 2006's list was topped by a song less than the sum of its parts, Oblivion is a gestalt. By all accounts, this song should not be any good. A squelching synthetic bass line straight out of 1987 farts along unchanged for a majority of this. Grimes' whiny, nasally, unintelligible vocals would see her eliminated very early on any one of the several dumb singing competition shows. And the various parts of this song or track blur together, and yet it's remarkably memorable per usual for her stuff. The parts fit together well. Oblivion gets the listener to playfully bob their head to lyrics about being violently attacked and the recovery to follow. We'll start it off at B and see what kind of fork they pitch into it. These keep getting longer. Pitchfork's adherence to brevity being the soul of wit is indirectly proportional to time after Shakespeare. Probably not a good idea in the age of rapidly diminishing attention spans. Yeah, the first paragraph is dumb with a little too much filler, and while it doesn't bode well for the rest of the write-up, there is still time to keep the cringe to a minimum. The middle paragraph is also almost all filler, but the fantastic final sentence saves it from being docked a tier. For now, there is still one more paragraph left, and here it is. It starts with irrelevant talk about the frankly unoutstanding video and ends with pretentious subjective Pitchfork speak. The interesting middle section of the paragraph isn't enough to prevent a tier reduction. Pitchfork has a well-earned reputation of being stiff and pontifical. While we have barrels of fun at their expense here, this is good-natured ribbing with plenty of love and affection. We appreciate their music is art first, entertainment second approach. But you have to call them out when they try to convince you a smoldering turd is high art. Pitchfork's 2013 pick for Best Tune is Hold On, We're Going Home from Drake featuring Majid Jordan. It attempts to be both an accessible dance pop and sexy slow jam track, but fails miserably at being either. It doesn't do anything interesting or new. In fact, it sounds downright dated. Only appropriate the video for this song is set in 1985, as this one sounds like it's from that time, and not in a fun, genuine throwback sort of way. No, more like in a plastic 80s synth beats are due for a commercial comeback, so let's toss them in sort of way. Add a few schmaltzy lyrics with a low energy delivery to a completely stagnant climax-free song or track with positively nothing memorable about it, and we've got ourselves a bona fide S-tier song without some smug pitchforker to get it there. But let's see if any smug pitchforkers can save this one. Paragraph 1 is typically pitchforkianly awkward with their real-world allusions. It's largely unnecessary but innocuous. Paragraph 2, though, is objectionable, discussing its context in the album on a list about how songs, or tracks, stand alone misses the point. Sheer stupidity to include it. Also, chart-topping artist with commitment issues finds D1 is a cliche and not worth mention, much less praise. The third paragraph has a sentence which casually insults its reader's intelligence. Yes, artists of all sort have covered it, but the author omits perhaps the biggest motivators for doing so, because it was popular, and its aforementioned basic simplicity makes it a very easy cover. Acts use it to get quick and easy exposure. If there was a tier below F, this head-shakingly bad summation would push it there, but you get the idea. F says all you need to know. Pitchfork has a type. They like their reviews to score 12 or higher on the Flesch-Kincaid scale. They prefer their men non-threatening, and they wish to align themselves with those who are perceived as cool. And boy do they love their synthesizers. As evidenced by another synth-driven single, or track, to be crowned their favorite of 2014. It's hard to blame them. Synth-driven songs have given them a higher batting average than most other Pitchfork-approved genres and styles, at least as far as picking good songs goes. Seasons Waiting on You by Future Islands continues the trend. After an awkward 30-second intro that sounds like random fiddling the first time they get a Korg to make sounds, the synthesizers take off with the verse, reach their cruising altitude with help from the guitar and bass of the chorus, and nearly exit the atmosphere soon thereafter. Lyrically, this one's about a relationship, probably romantic, but it works platonically, where the two parties are tired of trying to change one another, and seasons are used as a not too subtle symbol of this. All in all, it works. Get up on that A-tier, Seasons. Let's see how that Pitchforkian aftertaste impacts this one. These just keep on getting longer. More words don't usually bode well for a track maintaining its tier, but maybe this one will buck the trend. As totally irrelevant about the quality of Seasons as this paragraph is, I'll allow it. It's got two things usually lacking at Pitchfork: fun and a general dearth of pretension. What's the second paragraph say? What the hell? Another one that helps the reader appreciate the song a little more without trying too hard. Don't get my hopes up for another All My Friends boon. Never mind, this one is getting docked. There's literally not a single word of this paragraph that isn't subjective, non-relatable gobbledygook. And the last one, also unrelated to the quality of the song in any way, is about the band's, more specifically the frontman's live performances. While we can't fault him for the hustle, in current year I say his vibe is more like those 90s screamo bands who would gyrate like they were having seizures during their sets, more than a rock and roll Hall of Famer known for their stage presence. This stock Seasons yet another tier to C. Especially disappointed because the song is great and the hope of the first two paragraphs. For those interested in this sort of thing, it was in October of this year that Condé Nast bought Pitchfork and proper, fully and officially shedding whatever small amount of skin of theirs that could be considered independent and not corporate. R.I.P. Indie Pitchfork, 1996 to 2015. What song, or track, yeah, we're still calling them tracks here, tops the first yearly retrospective of the Condé Nast era? Why, Kendrick Lamar's All Right. This one's got quite a bit going on. For every yin, there's an equal and opposite yang. Its jazz rap production feels a little retro, but not at all dated. The beat is weak, but the melody is OP. The verses use instability to maximum effect, whereas the chorus is repetitive and monotonous, though admittedly a little catchy. Lyrically, the song juxtaposes the optimism of the refrain alongside the verse's general negativity. While some see the chorus as a dawn following the darkest of night, I see a contradictory message, a musical version of the "This Is Fine Room on Fire" meme. This being said, the good outweighs the bad by a small but notable amount, so we put Alright up in the B tier. Now, trendy backpack rap is right up Pitchfork's alley, so it is reasonable to assume this will be the Pitchforkiest summation yet. Let's see it. Yes, 5 paragraphs. We really need to shrink the font size of this one to screenshot all of this bad boy at once. Let's see what this barista with a master's degree has to say about it. First, the author is regurgitating Lamar's ostensibly hot takes, which is banal but acceptable. Or so it would be without the existence of 2 words. This dated even for 2015 use of the word minority. The other is undeniably, as if cops' alleged penchant and desire to spill black people's blood without consequence is an unquestionable truth. This docks Alright a tier downward. The next 2 aren't bad. I'll concede the chorus is an effective hook when it comes, but becomes limp by the time it ends, much less repeated listenings, as is usually the case when the same 4 words are repeated in sequence 8 times with few words interspersed. The following paragraph is a generally innocuous observation about the previously mentioned up v downbeat lyrical nature of the refrain v verses. Both of these paragraphs contain small but non-negligible amount of Pitchfork-style cringe. Alright has not yet dropped an additional tier, but if they don't change their tune, it'll drop soon. There are still 2 paragraphs remaining. And a change in Pitchfork's tune, they refuse. First, in that top paragraph, suppose some more casual Kendrick Lamar fan, unaware of the song's conscious tonality, gets hyped up at the chorus and authors their own verses expressing less Pitchfork-approved messages. Surely, if the author finds out about this transgression, well, they definitely misspell the guilty party's name on the cup holding their latte. The final paragraph is a pretentious note about how things look to be getting worse with the progression of time, subtly implying to support a politically reactionary or at least conservative solution. Either way, Alright is getting docked down to a D. Being perceived as cool is Pitchfork's MO. Without it, they lose all their cred and become a meme of what they envision themselves to be. In the year of our Lord, 2016, their crack team of researchers have determined referring to these individual packets of music discussed here as songs will get them more coolness than calling them singles or tracks which they've previously done. Don't think we didn't notice, you forkers. Anyway, other points of this video have featured the occasional performer who've become problematic to one level or another after being awarded Pitchfork Song of that respective year. The number 1 of 2016 stars a man whose body is fully 68% controversy. Ye, aka Kanye West, with Ultralight Beam, featuring The Dream, Kelly Price, Kirk Franklin, and Chance the Rapper. Now, Ye is nothing if not interesting. His music career, like his life outside of it, is constantly taking new directions while maintaining an ethos. Even the most casual music fans not actively hostile to rap can tell he's a visionary, or at least making legitimately interesting creative decisions. And like his real life, his songs are often more eccentric and experimental than actually good, mostly mids with a few misses and hits scattered about. Ultralight Beam is a classic case of this. Its harmonious choir, staggering 12/8 time signature, frequent and long rests, discomforting organ, disruptive beats, a verse by Chance, a prayer from Kirk Franklin. It should surprise no one, this is how a Kanye-ified gospel rap song in 2016 would go. Every one of the previously mentioned elements is very memorable on its own, but as a song, its 5 minutes and 20 seconds don't exactly fly by. It's not a particularly listenable piece. We'd give it a C, but Chance gives the verse of his lifetime here, putting the B in Ultralight Beam. What say Pitchfork about it? The time will come when Pitchfork's song summations will be brief enough not to break up by paragraphs, but this ain't it. A quick forward here. We give Pitchfork plenty of well-earned guff for their inability to look at singles as standalone entities, but when said single is done by one of the more enigmatic egomaniacs on the planet in a post-DEFCON 3 world, we're more than fine with it just this once. You can definitely see the cracks of cringe forming with the opening words of paragraph 1. Despite the assuming practice of opening paragraphs with a quote, and little talk at all about Ultralight Beam, this pair of paragraphs does a good job in setting the tone. There is no substantial talk about the song itself until paragraph 3, which correctly mentions Kanye's relative non-involvement in its performance. It's odd parts that make up the whole, particularly the large role silence plays. The first half of paragraph 3 is the review's most self-important pitchforkiest, before going more on about Ye himself. A main reason we're cool with the fork fixating as much as they do on him here is these words would be very, very different in the current year. Little talk directly exists about what exactly makes Ultralight beam so great in their eyes, but this is an S-tier digital time capsule, so we won't lower the tier as much as we may be tempted to. Time to take you to the bad old days of a few years before this video's upload, when most establishment mouthpieces propped Cardi B up as some musical demigod. If one wanted to read about music during this time and not be bombarded with pro-Cardi propaganda, it would be safe to assume the ostensibly free-thinking Pitchfork would be bereft of such nonsense. But lo, this apparent voice of independence is standing for this most establishment of artists as much as anybody else. Her song Bodak Yellow was their favorite of 2017. Though annoying, part of this excitement was definitely merited. This one happens to be the best of its subgenre. Ostensibly not bad considering this is Cardi's first single with major label heft, in a subgenre that's been around since at least the early 2000s. The subgenre Bodak Yellow tops is of course nerdcore, as evidenced by its title. Bodak is a moderately menacing undead creature, most commonly associated with Dungeons and Dragons, and yellow symbolizes the sunshine traditionally used to defeat undead creatures. Cardi takes an aggressive, dominating, confident tone in this one, belittling the usually intimidating Bodak as bitch no fewer than 10 times. Despite being the best of its kind, it's still a nerdcore song, and nerdcore is bad without exception. Hey, I don't make the rules, I just make them. The ceiling for the quality of nerdcore is very low, a D, which Bodak Yellow reaches. But D songs are, well, D tier. Bad. Okay, let's see the Pitchfork effect. Still 4 big old paragraphs. We're just going to move this one down to F now because we know Pitchfork is going to dig up a trove of cringe. I can feel it emanating from all that tiny text. But let's get on with it. There's much one may find objectionable in this paragraph, but one word all should. Unignorable. Nerdcore, which Bodak Yellow is as ignorable as a social media spammer. Paragraph 2 is good, except the inspiration is way, way off. Alright, next paragraph. The author really and truly doesn't know they're reviewing a nerdcore track, do they? Innocuous paragraph. The final paragraph is more awkward Pitchfork speak. So much pomp and very little substance. We were right to demote this one to the bottom. At this point, it's clear Pitchfork is increasingly gravitating toward music that either makes a moderately overt Pitchfork-approved social message, or music upon which they can overtly ply a Pitchfork-approved social message. Case in point, their top 2018 selection, Love It If We Made It by the 1975. Musically, this one's glossy in just the right way, popish without the bubblegum, plenty of layered depth to keep headphone listeners attuned. It changes pace and flows very well. Lyrically is where this one gets its attention. At first glance, the words are yet another instance of a person with a platform framing some banal statement like a hot take for clout. The lyrics sound made up on the spot, but apparently every line was carefully crafted. The 1975, or at least frontman Matt Heafy, have a strong enough reputation for taking some kind of action on their principles rather than simply pointing to those in higher income brackets and saying, you do it. While many may not be impressed with the amount of skin they have in the game, they're certainly not watching it all from the sidelines. We'd put this one higher, but it's very reminiscent of Billy Joel's We Didn't Start the Fire, which is never a good thing, so we're tossing it into the sea. Alright, Pitchfork, do your worst. Hey, only 3 paragraphs this time. They're longer than usual, but still, baby steps. By now, we know what we're getting with paragraph 1 of these things. Shira sets the stage, but has such a strong, virginal vibe, it's already a little bit exhausting. The second paragraph's actually quite good. It's not perfect. The song mentions topics stated here in soundbite form, rather than actually addressing them in full, but yeah, pretty good summary of the song there. Last paragraph reminds you that you are in fact reading Pitchfork. There's a small amount of smugness wafting through your screen from this review, but it's not thick enough to reduce Love It If We Made Its tier. Breakup songs are a dime a dozen. There's nothing inherently wrong with him, but if you're looking to write a memorable song on the topic, it's going to be a high bar to reach. One FKA Twigs does in Pitchfork's best song of 2019, Cellophane. Let's not pussyfoot around this one. This one is oozing pure, raw, authentic emotion. Whenever a rational, curious, neutral party happens upon a breakup, questions arise. Was the love unrequited? Nobody is entitled to anybody else's love. Was it taboo? Why wasn't more done to mollify or break it or avoid it? Is there more to the story? We should get the other side of it. These questions disappear, and the aforementioned party is no longer rational, neutral, or all that curious once the vocal climaxes. The minimal, haunting musical backdrop is perfectly fitting. Even the sounds of Twigs' heels stepping and scraping the floor in the music video add to the experience. Cellophane is decidedly a success as a piece of art, but does it succeed as a song? Something one would actively choose to listen to. Unless I'm really in the mood for a lovelorn dirge, the answer is no. This is only something to bust out when you really want your heartstrings tugged in just the right way. While this might be once every few months or so, when that time comes, there's nothing better. Cellophane gets a B. Time for the Pitchfork effect. Alright, good start. We can fit this in a single screen grab without needing a microscope to read it. The first paragraph is a very inefficient way of saying Twigs has seen some stuff in the recent past. It's pretty terrible, so we're bringing this down. The second paragraph, particularly the second half of it, despite its pitchforkian pretentiousness, is quite good. The song, especially the outro, despite their best wishes, they, at least I know I'm worthy of my glow, and I can respect that. Let's bump Cellophane back up to B tier. TikTok, everybody's favorite bite-sized video scroller / Chinese state spyware app's impact on music reached unignorable heights, even to slow adopters to new tech in 2020. The nature of TikTok made discovering and spreading music easier than ever, but also reduced songs to small snippets of their former selves. Enter Pitchfork's pick for their #1 song of that year, WAP, by Cardi B featuring Megan Thee Stallion. Thanks to the world's most effective attention span decimator, the only part of this one that is at all memorable is its climaxing chorus. What percentage of people who have been exposed to WAP know of any other part of the song? How many of them care? Said data mining app isn't completely at fault, the rest of the song simply isn't all that good. The vocal meter, particularly on the Cardi parts, is awfully static. Lyrically, as overtly as almost any other, WAP talks about the power of the vagina. In some ways, this is a big deal. What percentage of songs in your playlist have explicitly vaginally centered themes? Songs about sex in general don't count. The problem is WAP is an Amy Schumer bit transformed into a rap track, made somewhat funnier. Recall 2017, Cardi made the conscious decision to enter a field with a very low ceiling of greatness, music in the stylings of nerdcore. She does the same here in 2020, entering a field so closely associated with Schumer that WAP's ceiling is similarly low. Until Schumer's dominance of the field of making your vagina the center of your content wanes by enough, everything in that field will suffer a severe limit to its greatness. One this song definitely doesn't transcend. F tier. Maybe the benevolent oligarchs of the fork can save this one. Let's see what they've got. First half of the first paragraph is a banal statement on WAP's popularity. Though declaring anything a future monument a few months after its release is straight up cringe, doubly so when TikTok does much of the heavy lifting with said rise. It's the shorter second paragraph that brings the goods. This song, more accurately its chorus, had an accompanying dance that cannot be described as anything but the most challenging one to infect pop culture. Put this one next to the Macarena, Gangnam Style, or YMCA, and it simply doesn't compare. The Pitchforker here celebrates WAP's dance's inaccessibility, and therefore non-inclusivity. We will incredit it for encouraging more women to get their splits down. Hopefully said ladies maintain their flexibility after this future monument is crumbled. Clover Hope, congrats, you've boosted this one out of the cellar. By this point, it has been several years since Pitchfork has attempted to be ahead of the curve trendsetters with whom they put at the top of their yearly singles chart. Since 2015, the least mainstream act of this honor, FKA Twigs, was filling mid-sized theaters in both Europe and the US. It was time for the Fork to test their cultural clout with their top song once again in 2021, Bunny is a Rider by Carolina Polachek. It's safe to call Pitchfork's attempt to virusize this track a failure, or at least a non-success, because today, more than 2 years after this was crowned champion, with an accompanying YouTube link, said video still sits at less than 3 million at the time of this writing. But is the song a failure as a song? Sort of. This one has 2.5 minor attributes. The Bunny is a Rider satellite can't find a refrain that dominates the song. It's as much of a catchy earworm as it is a basic, obvious, annoying rhyme. Polachek speaks admirably about Bunny. She's untraceable, unfollowable, unreachable. In a world, these things are becoming more difficult by the day. Which is an interesting theme, one that probably doesn't show up in your playlist very often. In the song's second half, there's effective use of autotune which stands out in the restrained, disciplined way it's deployed. But beyond those, this one is a wholly unmemorable paint-by-numbers alt-pop track. Not bad, but give it a little while and this one will almost completely slip from memory like Bunny slips from satellites. C tier. Let's give Pitchfork one more chance to shove this one down our throats. This one starts off non-terribly enough, although the author's self-importance will cause some eye-rolling when they speak for the readers. The second paragraph attempts to frame Bunny as a Rider's reach for mainstream appeal, as if it's intrinsically superior to do so, docking the song a tier. The last paragraph is actually good for Pitchfork. This means it's insufficient by most reasonable standards, but the author does shine a light on ways to appreciate this one without reaching for the big picture grandiosity that never fails to cringe. Back to the C tier it goes. One thing we haven't seen Pitchfork use their top yearly song as a bold attempt to declare a long dormant style cool. The style in question is shoegaze. Pitchfork has always had a little bit of a thing for it, but not to the extent they've had for other genres like pop, alt-dance, backpack rap, pop rap, and lo-fi indie rock. Sure, they'll occasionally talk up acts whose sound has a definite shoegaze tinge, like, say, Def Heaven or the Deftones, but it's been a while since they've highlighted anything this overtly shoegazy and to this level by an artist whose name didn't begin with Def. Belinda Says by Alvvays takes Pitchfork's 2022 Top Song Award. Not only is this one selection baffling, but the song itself causes head-scratching with each listen. The song climaxes during its musically calmer parts and key changes. Musically, the song is both static and dynamic at the same time. Lyrical and musical subtleties abound, seemingly more with each examination of them. The song feels like it's moving too fast and too slow at once. It has retro sensibilities without feeling dated. Pitchfork risked quite a bit of cool cred in putting this one at the top. A song of this style, Belinda Says, by this band goes against much of what they hold dear. Credit to them for that. Also, give credit to them for finally picking a song for the S tier that doesn't need any further selling to get there. But let's hear the Forkers pitch anyway. The first paragraph sucks. One can't help but think of it as an excuse for the author to show us how well read they are. Alice Munro's name is dropped twice, but the Belinda referred to in the title, Belinda Carlisle, best known as the frontwoman of the Go-Go's, gets only one. The song's tone is more melancholic than overtly heartbreaking. And let's wait a little longer than 2 months after the track drops before sticking that classic label on it. Classics, by definition, need to stand the test of time. The rest of the first paragraph is a good lyrical summary of this song, so we won't be lowering any tiers quite yet. But we will after that second paragraph, which reads more like an entry for a metaforming competition than it does an entry in a countdown about songs. The amount of self-indulgence here squeezed in under 200 words is impressive enough to take Belinda Says down to the A tier.